I saw Greg perform in the US. It was really Gregory. Gregory Maqoma was the main protagonist of the film who inspired everything. And I saw him perform in the US. I have a dance background myself, so I always watch out for artists. And it was something about that performance that really captured me, about how he, through his body, through live vocals, told the story about his ancestor and ancestry and a history that wasn't normally told. He's from South Africa. And as a dancer also, I'm very intrigued by how history sits in our bodies, or how trauma, or sometimes our trauma, but also generational trauma, invades our bodies. And then dance and theater is a way to release emotions, to express it. And Gregory really personified that for me in the way he told that story through physicality and spirituality on stage. And Suzanne and I, we've known each other for a long, long time, and we're both artists as well. So we're also really interested in the creative process. What does it mean to be original artists and to create original work, and what does it take? So I spoke to a friend of mine who I know through the dance community, Natim Tsub, who's also South African, and it turns out he's like, I know Gregory. I know him personally. I went to to dance school with him in South Africa, and he introduced us. And so we presented the concept to Greg on the kind of story that we wanted to tell, and he invited us to follow him and to follow his life and the making of a new work. And Joy Dancer actually follows the creation of an entirely new dance work, and it was our first film shoot that was the genesis for the work itself.
And just to add, we had both travelled a lot in countries and worked a lot in countries where there had been some sort of civil conflict. And we had come across leaders who really do amazing things trying to help knit communities together again and help create empathy with each other and bring some reconciliation. And so for me, that was, I guess, the starting idea, and Greg is a personification of that, and he's made such an amazing contribution to art and giving people opportunity to have careers. And so in a way, he's created a whole generation of dance artists in South Africa, and that's the kind of story that we wanted to tell. So.
First of all, it was very important to us to work with a local crew. So we were lucky in that we met an incredible cinematographer, Moteo Moeng, who does a lot of fiction, but he also is very personable. And so for us, what was really important in filming was the focus on the emotion of how art changes the performer. So we were less focused on the audience in that sense, but the process of art making and the process of creating. What does it do to you, or how do you deal with that? So the focus was always on the emotions, and also having a movement background helps in terms of just the phrasing and the sequencing. But in terms of how we work with Moteo, he also developed a very trusted relationship with Greg, and he wasn't afraid to come up close and personal. And so the entire cast will tell you that. So that was very important to us in the cinematography. And there's some incredibly powerful improvisations in the film by Gregory, which were not planned, in the sense there's no choreography, but you see him literally transform. And through Mateo's cinematography, you're with Greg, you really feel him, and it's something incredible to watch, and quite powerful. And we filmed in a lot of, for us, sacred spaces, in the Apartheid Museum, at Gorée Island in Senegal, which is a memorial to the slave trade from the Western Africa to the US, as well as in Spain in Palau de Musica, which was also a gorgeous theater, but it was also funded through a lot of colonial resources. So the space was very important to us, the way we filmed movement in terms of being very close up and personal. And then the other aspect that was really important to us was not to have others judge what Greg is doing, but you really see what they're doing and you're experiencing creativity through them and through their eyes. And because he loves collaborating, so he made this work with a composer, with other singers, and that allows the audience to participate and to understand what is happening, because they're processing it verbally afterwards, what you see through movement or through music. And so in the edit process, we we tried to kind of stay as, we let Greg tell the story. You will see that Greg really leads the audience through the entire film. He almost takes you by the hand and you learn about him. You see like through the example of how he creates kind of what he really means and how vulnerable he makes himself as well. To stay true to that. So not have any experts kind of coming and commenting on it. And then also, in terms of the story structure, we found that the story of the piece was inspired by an African choir in the late 1900s that went to UK to sing for Queen Victoria. And as we were filming the making of that piece, it became clear to us that increasingly the story was interwoven with Gregory's and the other performers' story. So it was a play on the past and the present and what was happening back then and what's happening now and what's happening today. And so in the edit, we were interweaving those stories and then together with Gregory's story as well.
The film was serendipitous in a way in terms of the arc of the story. So the very first research shoot we had, Gregory did this amazing improvisation in the Apartheid Museum with these images of the African choir in the background, and it was really beautiful. And when we showed it to both Gregory and Tuka, the composer of the music in the room, but also he became the composer in the film, they were just blown away by the connection between the photos and the movement, and it brought the whole installation alive. And so that became then the process, the work that we filmed, which went on to tour the world, and it's played in the UK, the US, Brazil.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a lovely story. We were there right at the genesis of this work, and then we got to the premiere, which was in Barcelona. So, a lovely journey. I guess the biggest challenge was, it was a challenge. We were based in the US, and so we were filming in South Africa and Senegal and Barcelona. So just doing that. Organizing that was one of the challenges, but also it was fabulous. I was surprised at, we did most of our shoots in South Africa, and it was just such a fabulous place to make a film. People were just incredibly helpful, and our crew was amazing. And so, that was a great experience.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if it's a surprise, but as kind of one of the motivations for making the film was also, I personally was looking for leadership. And I was interested how artists deal with, as Suzanne said, living in a society that was torn apart and it's still frictious. And it was Greg's leadership also, being South African. He left South Africa, but he went back after apartheid ended to make a difference in his country. And something that really struck with me was when, in one of the interviews, he was saying, "This is about managing triggers." So for me, that really resonated in the sense that art gives you a space, it gives you a safe space to release, to refocus, to process. And it doesn't solve the big problems of the world, but it gives you the strength to then continue fighting. And he's also very much an activist when you follow him. So an activist for the arts, an activist for human rights, an activist for change. So for me, that was very insightful, and I could relate to that from my own background.
For me, fabulous. I love the idea that the film festival is embedded in the arts festival, because obviously for our film there's such a connection with the performing arts. So I had a lovely day yesterday where I went to a play, and then I went to an art show, and then I went to a movie. And there were similar themes across most of those different art forms. So it was it was fabulous to just have all these different ways of looking at sometimes the same issue, and it felt, for me, a richer experience for having the variety.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect fit, and what Suzanne said, you have artists coming at a topic from very different angles. In the film, you also see the composer, Tutuka Sibisi, he comes at it from a musical angle. Gregory comes from a movement angle. So everybody comes at a topic from a different angle. And being here at the festival, where, as Suzanne said, you have all of that. You have theater, you have cinema, you have art installations, galleries, and it just fits. It really fits here, and I think it's the right audience, and we are absolutely thrilled to be here.